Okay, so what if I told you that the key to your financial well-being, it isn't in some complicated spreadsheet, but get this, it's in your body. Yeah, today we're going to explore a really different way of looking at money, one that's way less about the numbers and a whole lot more about the feelings, the physical sensations that are actually driving all of our financial decisions. I mean, think about it for a second. You've probably been there, right? You're online, you're just about to book that dream vacation, and all of a sudden your chest gets tight. You feel that hesitation. But then, later that same day, you might spend the exact same amount of money on a dozen little things you don't even think about. So what's the deal? It's the same amount of cash, so why does it feel so completely, totally different? And this is where it gets super interesting. That money for an adventure, something you genuinely want, it feels heavy, stressful, almost threatening. But that subscription you barely even use, that money just kind of disappears from your account every month. No stress, no friction, nothing. It's the same number on a screen, but the experience couldn't be more different. Wild, right? All right, so this brings us to the first big idea here, and it's a big one. Our financial choices, well, they aren't just happening in our heads, they're actually happening in our bodies. You know, we're always taught that money is all about logic, about spreadsheets and budgets. But this whole idea just flips that completely on its head. See, your body, your nervous system, it doesn't really care about the numbers themselves. Nope. What it cares about are these stories that go along with those numbers. Your brain is literally wired to spot threats. And a story about you changing who you are, that can feel just as scary to your nervous system as, a real physical threat. And here's the reason why. That spending that feels so easy, so automatic, it's usually tied to who you've always been. It's familiar. It's safe. But that spending that feels so heavy, the stuff that makes your stomach clench, that's almost always money that's pointed towards the person you're becoming. Your body is literally feeling the threat of that change.
So how do we start to make sense of all this? Well, it turns out we can actually break down our spending into two really, really different categories.
Okay, on one hand, you've got what we call survival spending. This is the money you spend on things that just, well, they keep you comfortable, maybe a little numb, they maintain the status quo. But then, on the other hand, there's aliveness spending. And this is the cool stuff. This is the money that supports your joy, your growth, beauty, your transformation, all the good stuff.
Let's look at a great example. We'll call her friend A. She was dropping $200 a month on takeout, didn't even blink an eye. It was just easy, automatic, totally classic survival spending. But then she wanted to spend that same $200 on a pottery class she was like dying to take, and she agonized over it for weeks. It felt so irresponsible to her. And why? Because that pottery class was aliveness spending. It triggered this deep down resistance she had to the idea of becoming a person who does pottery.
Or how about friend B? A $600 car payment to, project this image of success? Totally comfortable, totally acceptable, survival spending. But $500 for therapy to actually feel successful on the inside? Whoa, that felt impossible, completely reckless. It's crazy, isn't it? We have zero problem funding the identity we think we're supposed to have, but we fight tooth and nail against funding the one we actually want. This just completely flips the script on what it means to be responsible with money, doesn't it? I mean, maybe the real fiscal irresponsibility isn't spending on our own growth, but slowly bleeding money away on a life that we're not even really living. Okay, so what's the fix? How do we actually break out of this pattern? You might be thinking, oh, I just need to earn more money. But the answer is actually so much simpler than that and way more powerful. The person whose work inspired this had this huge breakthrough moment. She realized that when she looked at her own life, nothing on paper had actually changed. Her income was exactly the same. Her budget, same thing. The change wasn't happening on the outside, it was all happening on the inside. She wasn't earning differently, she was relating differently. And this one single sentence was the absolute key to everything. She told herself, I allow money to support my aliveness, not just my survival. And wow, that shifted everything. It went from seeing money as this thing to be controlled and feared, to seeing it as a resource for life, for curiosity, for becoming more. It's not about telling yourself to spend more money, not at all. It's an invitation to live more. So, how can you start using this in your own life? Well, here is a super powerful question you can ask yourself to figure out what's really going on whenever you feel that resistance pop up.
Okay, the next time you feel that tightness in your chest about spending money, just pause and ask yourself this. Is this resistance protecting me from something that's actually reckless, or is this my future self knocking on the door? Seriously, asking that one question can help you figure out if it's your genuine wisdom talking or if it's just the fear of your own growth.
And here's a super simple little exercise to get you started. First, just start to notice which expenses in your life just feel invisible, like they happen on autopilot. Second, feel which expenses feel heavy, even if they aren't reckless. And then third, ask, what do these different reactions tell you about who you believe you're allowed to be? It's all about getting curious. And that's really the heart of it all. This whole thing isn't about spending more. It is about living more. It's about finally giving yourself permission to let your money be a bridge to the life you want, instead of a wall that keeps you stuck. Because in the end, it all comes down to this one idea. Money responds to your relationship with it, not just the numbers. So if you really want to change your financial reality, stop staring so hard at the spreadsheet. Start looking at the relationship. Because when you change how you relate to money, money really does change how it relates to you. And that, right there, is a secret that can change absolutely everything.